Hi everyone, Trevor here. So today I'm going to go over setting up Docker on Windows 10 Pro using Windows Subsystem for Linux, and then we're going to install the Docker container for Bitwarden, a password manager. We're going to need a couple things before we begin. We're going to need our TSL SSL certificates for Bitwarden. I got these from my web server. You can go ahead and use any kind of free utility to get your TSL SSL certificate, such as Let's Encrypt, Zero SSL, etc. This I downloaded from my web server, and I have a wildcard certificate that I'm going to be using. So, as I was saying, this is a virtual machine. I'm going to copy the certificates first into the documents directory. Then on the host, I'm going to open up PowerShell, and I'm going to enable the virtualization extensions, and you need to do that with Windows 10. And to do this, we're going to have to shut down the virtual machine first. So this will just take a minute. With it off, we're going to run the following command. Set VM processor, VM name, then you put your VM name. In this case, it is Docker _ demo dash expose virtualization extensions true. And that's been run, and that's set up. Now we can turn our virtual machine back on. So my host is running Hyper-V, and then this Windows 10 machine, which is running or will be running Windows Subsystem for Linux, is also, that is a virtual machine running on the host. So now that we're logged in, we're going to set up Windows Subsystem for Linux. So I'm going to want to install a couple things first. So I'm going to open up Edge. I'm going to download PowerShell. So just getting the latest version. I prefer to use the stable version. There's also a long-term servicing branch right here in the release. So there's the stable, and there's the long-term service branch. So this will just take a few seconds to download. And then we'll install it once it's finished here. Okay. So we want PowerShell. I like having the sub menu and the PowerShell remoting enabled. And there we are. We have PowerShell installed. Next up, now that we have this installed, I'm going to pin it to the taskbar, and we're going to install the Windows Subsystem for Linux. It can be done two ways. You can do it through the control panel or through PowerShell. We're going to install it through PowerShell, but I'm going to show you where to install it through the control panel. So you go Start, Control Panel, Programs, turn Windows features on and off, and it's right there, the bottom, Windows Subsystem for Linux. And then if you hit OK, it would go ahead and install, but we're going to use PowerShell, the WSL install option. You have to run PowerShell as an administrator. And it'll just take a minute. The default it will download is Ubuntu. And I believe it downloads the latest version. So you can also download the package from the Microsoft website as well for older systems. So I'm going to go to Edge here. And you can find everything you need from the learn.microsoft.com. Shows you the manual installation for older versions of Windows. And here's the distribution packages that are available. I prefer Ubuntu or SUSE Linux, but you have Debian, Fedora, etc., etc. Yeah, and now we have our kernel installed and all that. We're going to need to run a command, and we also are going to need to download our Docker desktop here. So let's download Docker. Okay, while we're downloading Docker, I'm going to go to my C drives. I'm going to create a folder called Bitwarden. Bitwarden. And we're also going to need to run a PowerShell command that will update WSL. So let's just get the Docker desktop here. So get that installed. Okay. Alright, so now we got that going. We're going to use WSL, add a shortcut to the desktop. Okay, while we got Docker installing, let's go back to our PowerShell. And we're going to want to run the command dismexe online feature enable virtual machine platform all. And with that done, we can close PowerShell, and with Docker being installed, it'll log us out. Now, I'm going to just reboot the system. There will be updates and whatnot, and also it's good to just give it a reboot after a big install like that. It changes several system files and the way the system works. Okay, so our system is back. I'm going to log in here. And also I need to set up the DNS. So you can see here that I'm using pfSense, and here is my DNS resolver settings. So I'm going to want to create a new host override. I'm going to call it Bitwarden. Domain optionkey.ca. IP address. I'll get that from the system. We'll just log in. Okay, go to PowerShell, we'll do an IP config. So we have 162, so we'll go back to our firewall, and there, I have it entered there, Bitwarden, and everything should resolve now. We have this set up this way because this is how Bitwarden works. It needs the DNS for the certificate. So we got Docker getting our Windows subsystem for Linux all integrated. We can see our name resolves, and everything will be back in a minute. Okay, now we're going to accept the Docker terms of service. We can see the engine is starting, and this will just take a few minutes. Okay, now we'll go back to our Ubuntu install to see what's going on with it. It will take a few minutes to do. It is faster than... Oh, there we go. Now we need to create a user for the subsystem account. I'm just going to call it admin. Oh, I better not do that. Let's go with Docker. Password, we'll make it Docker just because this is a demo. There we are. Docker is ready to go. There's a tutorial you can take, or you can go ahead and skip it, and we're going to skip. Okay, so now we're going to test Docker. We're going to copy this command, we're going to open up PowerShell, and we're going to run it. So it couldn't find the sample, so it just went and got it and pulled it. It's bringing up firewall prompt. We'll allow access, and we can see here we have our getting started container. Okay, here, so now we're going to go to our Bitwarden folder on the C drive. There it is. Okay, we do need to get our Bitwarden installer, the installation ID and key. Just fill in your email address. So I'm going to use my TTIE. And then we get an installation ID and key. I'm going to copy those. I'm going to throw them in Notepad, because I'll be needing those later, and you should probably save them somewhere safe if you ever decide to redo your install. Okay, so we're going to go get the on-premise instructions from Bitwarden for the install. So needs 8 gigabytes or more RAM, a minimum dual core 64-bit processor. We don't need our SSL certificates yet. So we're going to set up and run the commands here in PowerShell. Need to make sure I'm in the Bitwarden directory. It helps if you type it in correctly. Okay. Oh, we have some garbage here. Oh, there is an issue with the command. 1 second. Okay, so found the issue. There was an extra PS in the command. So when we run that, we get prompted for the password. I'm going to use Bitwarden. We also need to run the new user as privileged admin. So let's open up PowerShell as an administrator. And we'll cd to the Bitwarden directory. Okay. So we'll run the password command. We'll put in the password, Bitwarden, and then we'll create our user. Okay. So now we're going to create a PowerShell file from what they have on Bitwarden's server at the URL. It doesn't take very long. It's just a text file. And then we're going to install it. Making sure we get the install flag. We still can't use our TSL certificates. We can see there's the Bitwarden PowerShell command. Okay, here's where we put the DNS information. So that would be bitwarden.optionkey.ca. Do I want to use Let's Encrypt? No, I don't. Enter database name. And the poll for Bitwarden takes about 3 to 5 minutes. So with the poll complete, here's where we put in the installation ID and key that we got earlier. Enter the key. Do I want to use an SSL certificate? Yes. And now that's all done, we can move our certificates into place. So, my apologies for the kind of messed up console there. Close that. Okay, so I'm going to just copy these. And I'm going to paste them in the SSL directory, in the bitwarden.optionkey directory, so that when I go to rebuild Bitwarden, it reads the certificates. So I'm going to remove the install, go rebuild. This will just take a few minutes. Okay, so now we're going to start our Bitwarden container. So it takes about 200 to 300 seconds for the container to run it, do its thing. So we'll come back later after it's done. Okay, with everything pulled, it's starting to run our Bitwarden container. Starting. Changing from starting to started. Waiting for Nginx. Now the Bitwarden container is now up and running. So we'll just open our browser. We'll type in the DNS bitwarden.optionkey.ca, and we have contact. So we can see our container is now up and running. So I hope you found this tutorial useful. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. Otherwise, we'll see you later.